That's exactly the kind of thing that people talk about needing in the United States, and we do need it, but just a really, really radically different labor relations there.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
Speaking of general strikes, though, one is happening in France.
Very, very different set of labor relations and laws in France.
Absolutely. So in France, much more explicitly, although, Republicans, despite their protestations, do very much want to cut retirement benefits here in the United States. But they have been backed into a corner. They're on the defensive right now about that. But in France, Emmanuel Macron is interested, explicitly so, in cutting retirement benefits by raising the retirement age from 62 to 65, I think.
Yeah, I believe that's right.
And so the unions are really pushing back against that. And we've got a clip from Means Morning News about what's going on in France. So let's play that.
As U.S. lawmakers consider raising the Social Security retirement age from 67 to 70, workers should take notice of how similar legislative proposals are being received across the Atlantic in France. Unions are engaged in another day of mass protests across the country to defeat pension reforms. French President Emmanuel Macron wants to raise the retirement age from 62 to 64 years old. He's hoping to finalize the change by next month. But the country's unions are trying to make sure that doesn't happen. Since the reform proposal was introduced, the country has been rocked by rolling general strikes that have snarled transportation lines, closed schools, and shuttered ports. Tuesday's actions, which involved upwards of 2 million people, according to the unions, also targeted oil refineries. There were reports that workers blocked deliveries, and there are concerns France could be hit with a petrol shortage by week's end. According to public polling, 2/3 of French citizens support the ongoing protest against Macron's retirement reforms, and the unions say they're willing to continue their open-ended strike actions until they win.
That's exactly the kind of thing that, that people talk about needing in the United States, and we do need it, but just a really, really radically different kind of, radically different labor relations there.
Right, and I think the working class in France has a lot more experience and practice in militant tactics and in fighting back and in being willing to shut down their government. They've had quite a few governments over the years and quite a few general strikes, quite a few labor uprisings. So it is a little different. But I do think that American workers should pay attention. I am an internationalist. I believe that workers of the world have more in common with each other than we do with the bosses and politicians of our own country. I think that what happens across the world is relevant to us. I think it's easy to get in our little worlds and think about our own communities and neglect how we are all connected. This is a globalized economy. Capital certainly doesn't, respect borders.
Right.
So what happens in Europe, what happens in Latin America, what happens in Asia absolutely has an impact on the United States. And of course, the United States being the world's biggest superpower and biggest economy, it's, what happens here is relevant for them. So, yeah, I think it's important that we be internationalist. I think it's important that labor shows support and solidarity to our brothers and sisters across the world and support them in their struggles as hopefully they'll support us in ours. It's two of America's closest allies, the UK and France, are seeing some massive labor unrest. As you mentioned, in France, it's about the neoliberal Macron government going after their pensions, which have been hard-fought, hard victories that they secured those pensions for people. So, the French are prone to fight back. That's what they're doing. And we've seen it in the UK as well. There's been a strike wave from sector to sector, industry to industry. A large number of workers either have been on strike or currently are on strike. And I am not sure what the latest development is on this bill, but I know that just like U.S. courts and politicians have been pushing back on our American labor movement with restrictions to the right to strike and proposed restrictions on the right to strike and picket, Conservative Party, the Tories in Britain, have been taking a similar approach. And I know that they actually had put forth a bill that would just really devastate the ability of labor to go on strike and demonstrate. So I'm not exactly sure where that's sitting in Parliament. I know that it was so bad that actually right before Marty Walsh resigned, he gave a statement saying that denying support for the legislation.
I remember that because it was very strange seeing that, because it happened almost immediately after he did this statement about how like it's important to, you know, protect the right to strike, after he had supported
right.
Biden.
Yeah, because exactly. That's looking back here from The Guardian. It says, meanwhile, number 10 hit back at the comments from Washington saying far more restrictive rules were in place in many U.S. states, and that President Joe Biden himself had blocked a national rail strike, which, you know, they ain't wrong.
Right.
But claiming that your anti-union, anti-worker law is not as bad as America's broken labor law isn't really saying much.
No.
The United States is an international disgrace when it comes to labor law, and it's disappointing, though not surprising, to see the Tory government trying to follow the U.S. in this race to the bottom for the global working class. So send our love and solidarity to the striking workers in the UK and as well in France. Wishing you much success to beat these really vicious attacks against your security and retirement. Defend those pensions. Teachers and nurses and others in the UK, I hope that you can really build enough strength to turn this Tory government around and kick them out. You know, I'm disappointed that Labor is not really a viable opposition anymore, unfortunately. So that is not good for the labor movement in the UK. The Labour Party there seems determined to be as bad as the Democrats here. So we'll see. You know, by no means am I an expert in international labor news, but thought it was important to put that out there, and it's important to reflect on how we are connected and learn from other workers and how they're fighting back.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project. And you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.